Craving a DAC that has both good specs and true musicality for under $1,000? Stay tuned. I believe I have an option that might intrigue you. Hi everyone, Mark from Audio Pursuit. Thanks for spending a bit of time with me today. I know there's an endless supply of worthy things to watch on YouTube, so I appreciate your time very much. You know, listening to music is all about the engagement and how the notes from the instruments touch the listener. As I dive deeper into this hobby, I find myself less concerned with some specifications and far more influenced by how each piece of equipment reproduces the tones, imaging, and soundstage. As designed by mixing engineers in the case of studio recordings, or the venue from a live recording. I believe it's why I don't consider myself a fan of equipment that is so intentionally focused on absolute specifications and hyper detail over musicality. When it comes to DACs, absolute sharpness at the expense of any warmth is my line in the sand. It's probably why that while I appreciate the insanely good specifications of SMSL and Topping along with other DACs that use Sigma Delta chips, I find my own personal happy zone easier to find with R2R ladder resistor DACs. Recently, Rosemary at Apos Audio asked me if I was interested in reviewing the Topping Centaurus DAC, since it is an R2R design. I was definitely enthusiastic. One of my goals was to find out how well it performed in comparison to my Denafrips Aries II. Just a week later, the unit arrived in this black anodized finish. By the way, silver is also available. The Centaurus is a typical half-width HiFi product with a power button on the left, followed by a 2-inch LED screen with soft touch controls on the right side and vertically placed up-down buttons along the right for selection purposes. The screen itself will display on the top left the input with the output on the top right. Down below is a very nice font size is the volume measurement, which can be set to in various step points, which I really appreciated, beginning with 0.5. The small little lettering below details the sampling rate, and below that is a very small set of horizontal left and right meters. You have the choice of 9 different colors for your display. You have the choice of 9 colors for the display. Other screens are also available if you wish to change, including Spectrum Analyzer, which I found usefully visible from a seated position some 8 feet away, or a VU meter. Around back from left to right, you have the XLR outputs, followed by the vertical RCA single-ended output, I2 squared, with the coax input above the optical. Next to that, you have the Bluetooth antenna with the USB input below it. Finally, in the last section, is the 12-volt trigger, power cord receptacle, and the thin vertical rocker switch. Let's go inside, where you will find a fully balanced 8-channel R2R design. The front end handles DSD, while the back end takes care of PCM. An Altera Max 2 chip acts as the CPLD, complex programmable logical device, which directs both ends. If you wish to take a deep dive into this, I highly recommend my friend Ed Holmwood of old Guy HiFi's review of the Centaurus. The menu can be accessed either directly from the front panel or by remote, which I actually preferred. I won't go into every single menu item, but if you look at the pictures, Or if you're really interested, Rick Ruiz does an exceptional job with this in his review, and then I invite you to check out that video, which I will provide in the links. That being said, I would like to focus in on just a few specific features. The first of the menu choices is the ability to use the Centaurus as a DAC preamp combo, which I chose to do for much of the review. I had my WIM Ultra Streamer sending the signal out via optical into the Centaurus. Another nice menu access is the various sampling rates. You can start with NOS, non-oversampling, which is 1x. You can go to 2x, 4x, 8x, and 16x oversampling. I found personal happiness with the 4x oversampling. But this is a personal taste issue, and I highly encourage everybody who purchases one to visit and play with all of them multiple times before choosing the one you like best. The remote, while not a true capsule shape, does have a nice feel as the backside is rounded, which fits comfortably in the hand. The top left button in red is your power, with the mute button on the top right, followed by the iPod style circular dial and center button. Below that is the pairing button, next to it being the line out selection. Then comes the 10-band PEQ choice and the setup button on the right. And then down on the bottom are the trigger and then the brightness on the right side, with 3 choices of high, medium, low for the screen. If you hold it down, you can have your choice, the golden VU meter, or if you hold it down a while again, you get to the spectrum analyzer. The Bluetooth feature worked as advertised, but other than for testing purposes, it's not something that I would see most people using based upon the $9.99 retail price. Now, I did have a chance to compare this for a couple of days against the Topping D93 discrete DAC, which I'd recently reviewed. Playing the same music and writing down my observations over those days that the 2 units overlapped, I'm going to be fair and say that the D93 discrete, true to its form, had more absolute resolution. The Centaurus, on the other hand, sounded more natural, with that touch of warmth that R2R DACs are known for. I just find it easier to listen to R2R for longer periods of time, such as when you have a combo of a very hot treble and speakers with a very bright top end, like the Veri-fi Audio Rangers in my last review. Now, I've been on a kick with a lot of 70s music from my teen years recently. Don't know why. But listening to Loggins and Messina's Be Free, the mandolin guitar had all the brightness without being shrill. The Centaurus also provided a bit of naturalness to the harmonies that the D93 discrete and the SMSL DO400 just can't quite match, even with that DO400 tube setting for sonic output. The oboe in mid-song instrumental almost sounds like something that would have come out of Alan Parsons' Turn of a Friendly Card album. It's quite magical. The finger cymbals to play along with the violin during the mid-song are nicely separated. There is no collision or overlap that muddies the overall sound and texture. All the while, the mid-range has that beautiful tonal quality that I found incredibly engaging. One aspect of the Centaurus that I really appreciate is how it sounds at low volume level. At 70 decibels in my 11 by 10 foot room, that's still fairly quiet. The Centaurus R2R design, which was designed with Holo Audio, by the way, and that may explain a great deal of its engagement and natural sound. I cannot say the same for the D93 discrete, as it needed to be at least 75 dB or better to hold my interest. Spinning Harry Chapin's ballad, Sequel, the various drum kit moments hit rapid fire, especially with the snare and the upper toms. I found these to be slightly better resolved than the bass tom. Once again, the R2R ladder resistor design is able to provide vocals with a nice balance of youthful tightness and that hint of nasalness that you hear when Harry reaches the word cry, as well as the part where he sings Fly With Her Feet on the Ground. Switching over to Dire Straits' Communique album, which is a treasure trove for audio fanatics, the Centaurus really shines in Where You Think We're Going. Knopfler's unique melodic lead guitar with the mid-band notes just ooze beauty. While when he goes picking into the upper frequencies, the notes carry with an aura that made me lean in and listen. Comparing the Topping Centaurus to my Denafrips Aries II over 4 days of listening to the same music, making sure to level match for the output volume, my impressions are the following. The Centaurus has more detail in the upper frequencies. There's a bit more shimmer in the cymbals, as well as a sharpness with instruments, such as flutes and the upper registers of the piano. The mid-range isn't as full-bodied or as rich as the Aries II. But once again, detail was just a bit sharper. The Aries II also had a bit more muscle in the bass notes. I will say when it came to female vocals overall, the Centaurus has the edge on the Aries II with clarity and the vocal subtle individual characteristics of each artist, whether it be Barbra Streisand, Pink, Natalie Merchant, or Melissa Etheridge. All were impressive. Another good example would be Gillian Welch, with her track Hello in There. Her haunting stripped-down vocals, backed up by an acoustic guitar, is a perfect example of how the Centaurus, with its holo audio R2R design, creates an emotional connection. On the other hand, male vocals with that hint of greater richness in the chest allowed the Aries II to get the edge. These differences were small, and let's be clear on that. And if my Aries II somehow went bad, I would easily plug in the Centaurus and be very much content. I do want to emphasize that these are my subjective impressions. There are no measurements to back up anything here. For those of you who are interested, Audio Science Review's website has a full review of measurements with commentary on the Centaurus. That being said, how each of us perceive sound is based on a whole list of both physiological and emotional factors. I would not fault anybody for choosing the Centaurus over the Aries II. Matter of fact, if I was just listening to certain genres, such as female vocals or solo piano, the Centaurus would definitely be the choice. Since the Centaurus has come out, a few sub-500 DAC models have hit the market. Now, I have not had the chance to personally experience them, but from the comments of other reviewers, the general consensus seems to be that while the sound has that typical R2R characteristic, you lose a little bit of depth and three-dimensionality due to the price point. This should surprise nobody, as with better component parts and design, sound quality does improve. The Centaurus's greatest side feature is that for those who are not interested in analog and want to stay strictly digital, the fact that it can be used as a worthy preamp with adjustments for the decibel step increases or decreases is a big deal. Pairing it up with a nice piece of HiFi Class D amplification in a small design, the R2R ladder DAC, along with the preamp capabilities, means that by adding just a streamer, you have a warm sounding 3-piece electronic solution. If the Centaurus had room for a set of analog inputs, it would be an insane value, as it would become a full-fledged preamplifier. By any measurement, the Centaurus is truly a first-rate sub-$1,000 solution. I think that you will find its musicality is worth the difference compared to similar Delta Sigma designs by both Topping and SMSL. Once again, I want to thank Rosemary and the good people at Apos Audio for providing this review sample. And yes, it will be returning to them. I hope you've liked this video, and if you did, I'd really appreciate if you did a like and subscribe. The more members I get, like all reviewers, the more equipment manufacturers are willing to share with us for doing reviews. Until next time, find a great album, put away the devices, and get lost in the beauty of the music. Take care, everyone.